Looking for fun places that you can go to when you're bored or at home? Well, I have a couple ideas, as well as how I would modify these activities if I were to do them again, or how I would modify them when it comes to my expectations. One of them is playing a game that I'm unfamiliar with or a sport that I'm unfamiliar with. And what I mean by unfamiliar, it doesn't mean that I don't know about it, it's just that I'm not an expert or pro at that sport. For example, tennis, I'm not a pro tennis player or avid golfer, but I don't mind playing these activities every once in a while with friends if I have the time and space to do it. For example, a lot of golf clubs in the area could be seemingly only for members because a lot of them present as private. But one great example is the Riverwood in Clayton, North Carolina. It is a golf course, but you can book tee time. Now, if you don't know what tee time is, it's basically where you can book in a slot to play golf or play golf on that course. And you can also get some equipment like golf balls and golf clubs, and you can rent out at the facility for an additional charge. Now, this is great because you get to go somewhere that may be closer to you, and also it's great because you don't actually have to buy equipment or get more expensive equipment from maybe a bigger facility. Looking for more fun activities to do in the Raleigh-Durham area, you can check out my website where you can find different activities, Viva price, as well as the suburb of where you live in. But going back to sports and unfamiliar activities, one thing to consider when you are playing golf or tennis is expectation. Now, what I mean by expectation is that sometimes if you're invited to play golf or maybe tennis with a friend, sometimes they may want to practice with you because they actually want to really use their skills, where you are coming at it as more as a time to spend time and talk to your friends. So when you are playing these sports, is to keep in mind expectations. It doesn't matter if the person is competitive and want to play the game, that's great. But if you don't necessarily have the energy that day to play a full round of golf or a full round of tennis, that's okay. But keep those things in mind when you're asking different people to play the sport or when you communicate it to that person. Now, another thing to consider when it comes to another activity is free events and festivals. Now, when I say the word free, it's important to keep in mind that that could come with a caveat, such as sometimes you may have to pay for parking or transportation. And also sometimes you may also have to pay when it comes to vendors. A lot of times if you go to smaller local festivals, there are vendors like artists or maybe singers who are displaying their art, and you may want to pay for their services. So even if you're going to a free festival event, I would modify my expectation and still bring in my credit or cash just in case there might be some other areas that may require payment or you may want to buy, especially when it comes to food or water. Now, another thing to consider if you're looking for another place is going to a curated garden or a public botanical gardens. A great example of this is the Duke Gardens in Durham, North Carolina. This has really lush landscaping, and one thing that I love is that a lot of these times these gardens are not too big, so it's a great space to walk around and enjoy nature. And a lot of times these places also may have events. I would definitely consider going to their events calendar, such as the Duke Gardens, so that way you can see if there's any activity that you can do at the gardens if you've already been to that garden or botanical gardens before. Now, another thing I would also consider or modify when it comes to expectations is figuring out the timing or season. If you're going to like the Duke Gardens, for example, during the springtime, it could have a lot of people taking graduation photos or maybe weddings. So it's important to keep in mind the hours of when you want to go to these public or curated gardens because it could be crowded. And if you have friends or family members who don't want to be surrounded by a lot of people, especially cameras, that is another thing to keep in mind when you are going to these gardens. And also another thing to keep in mind is the same thing, parking and transportation. Some of these places could be considered free depending on what type of garden that you go to, but a lot of times you may also have to pay in the back end when it comes to finding a place to park or finding an area where you can lie your things. So those are things to keep in mind. Now, if you're looking for more ideas,